Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, and leave me a comment and hit that little bell for notifications. And want to give a big shout out to all of you. Thank each and every one of you. We just went over the 250,000 subscriber mark, which is very nice because we had Google working against us there for quite a while. Shadow banning us, if I dare say those words, probably result in another ban. But guess what? We're free speech advocates for sure. So anyway, we got there 250. Thanks to each and every one of you. You did it. Thank you. Now, a quick update. We're going to do our Patreon show immediately following this as well, where obviously you'll be able to call in on the CrimeTalk line, and we'll answer any questions you have. Now, want to talk about a couple of things. Obviously, we have the Delphi issue going on where the court has finally issued an order and they set a hearing next month for oral arguments as to whether Judge Francis Gull should remain on the case and whether Richard Allen, the accused, the defendant's attorneys who were fired by the judge for her statement of gross incompetence should be what's the word I'm looking for? Returned to the case. I've said it before, and I will say it again. I've never seen a defense attorney fired for any reason by the court. You know, if you have an ethical issue, you have to withdraw. But for a judge to step in and say you did it, and Frank and I, you know, our producer, hardest working man in show business, you know, I had the motion, and we talked about this when it first came out. This was their motion basically saying there wasn't probable cause, there were factual misrepresentations. And I think we got through, maybe 30 pages or something of it. And this is a 135-page motion. And it basically says is there's no way that a single person could have set up that crime scene the way it was set up by one person in the short amount of time in which it took place. And I, read through it, and, we went through it where basically they said, for this to take place, whoever did this would have had to, hold up the body at the same time, simultaneously doing this. I mean, it's rather interesting. And you read it and you're like, huh. My first thought when I read it was, well, I don't know if these attorneys have basically cited throughout the motion to points in the discovery. They're not making stuff up. This is stuff that came from their police investigation discovery. And, did Richard Allen do it? I don't know. I mean, what do they have? They have him in the area. They have his weapon apparently leaving some sort of mark on the bullet that the police say is good enough. Okay. I'm not a big fan of tool mark stuff. I really am not, particularly on mass-produced type of firearms. But hey, that's a problem that the defense has to deal with. But anyway, so the Supreme Court in Indiana has said they're going to have oral arguments on it within the next month. I think January 17th was the date that that's going to take place. So that's good. Now, remember, even after it was briefed, the court could have said, nah, we'll just rule on it on the paper, which is the briefs. We don't need oral argument. But they set it for oral argument, which I think is interesting because they didn't have to do that. So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. And obviously, the other case that we've been following for quite a while here, literally since it began, well, Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow matter. And, obviously Lori Vallow has been tried, convicted, and sentenced in the case as it relates to the death of her children, JJ and Ty Lee, as well as the death of Tammy Daybell, the wife of Lori Vallow's now fifth husband in this big ongoing saga that she calls her life. Well, the court issued a couple of rulings in regards to how the case is going to proceed. And what we do know is it's staying in Ada County, so it's going to Boise. We like Boise because it has a nice big airport. whereas the one in Fremont County, it was a little bit of a drive, but it was a bigger airport versus a much smaller little local airport there. So we'll be going back for that. And also, just another scheduling note, we have put it on our calendars. I don't think I have signed up for it yet, but we are going to CrimeCon, and I think we're going to do it. I think it's the first weekend in June, if I'm not mistaken. Last weekend in May, first weekend in June kind of thing. It's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's in Nashville. Who doesn't love Nashville? Fun city. My daughter went to graduate school there, but she was always too busy. Every time I went out there, it was like for 24 hours and back. So we'll be going there as well. All right. And also, we will be taking your questions this evening. So please feel free to type something in the chat. We'll try to see that. Now, we don't ask for, nor do we beg for super chats, but it is a fact that, what's the word I'm looking for? I can actually see your questions better when they are highlighted. Okay. And I think they get highlighted for no matter what amount. So if it's $1, $5, $20, doesn't matter. It gets highlighted. So if you really want your questions asked, we will try to do that. So let me just take a quick perusal here of, see, Grammy thinks. Look at that. Didn't get her notification either. That, my friends, is Google. I don't know what it is. If, we have who we upset, I don't get it. I don't know exactly what we said, but Google, if they don't like you, man, they just kick you out. So that's why we are also on Facebook, Rumble, Roku, Twitch, we're on all those. So in case one particular area shuts you down, and I think don't all our stuff still go to scottreich.com as well? I think they do. I just haven't checked that in a bit. And sometimes if we have stuff that will definitely get us banned, we'll put it up on the website where nobody can take it down, because that's the way the people work these days. Oh, let me tell you a story. This is kind of a side note. Okay. I have told you I am very adamant that I believe that court records are public information. Okay. And let me see if I can find this exact order. This is coming from the Colorado courts. Okay. And this is offensive to me. And attorneys that I've spoken to, as well as investigators, said it was also offensive because particularly investigators, is because this is how they investigate. They have access to other court files. All right. Let me see if I can do this. Find this here. I got this order. Sorry, I should have pulled this up. But where is it? It was today. Oh, well, I'll find it. I should have pulled this up. My apologies. It was kind of a long day and I got stuck on a phone call right here before the show started. But so, like I said, public records should be public records. I remember when I first started working in a law firm, I was a runner. All right. I was in college. I would literally go file stuff, like a messenger boy. That's the fancy word for it, right? A runner. Your job was to show up, go take this to this law firm. They're going to have another envelope for you. Go file this. The partner in the law firm wants you to go wash his car. Okay. And you just do it. It didn't matter. You just did it. But you would oftentimes be asked to say, hey, go over to the courthouse, pull this file, copy everything in it, and see what's in there. And you would go do it. And you would fill out a little form. Like in the Denver courthouse, you'd go to the basement. It was in the basement of the building. It was the records room. And they had every open file was there, and everything within, I don't know, like the last 10 years was there. And you fill out the little form, and You say, this is who I am and this is the file I want. They would go pull it and they would stick it there, and you would go over there and you would copy it. You would take a roll of quarters, or you get a copy card and you would go copy the court file. And it was public record. It was what you did. And that's the way it should be, right? Our society, our system was based upon a public record. And so, over the years, they become more and more difficult. Lots of judges, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the judges will suppress the file, particularly in a couple of them. I wouldn't say got in trouble, but there were some issues because the press tried to get to it and said, why should we have to pay to get access to a public file? And that was when things were transitioning to the more of the digital records that they keep now. So anyway, there was a state bill that was passed by the Senate that basically said you have to suppress the names of minor children in all court documents in which there's a minor that are, whether they're a victim, you're supposed to suppress it, which I think is odd because they're going to show up on a witness list form that's required to be filed by the prosecution, and they're going to have to list it. So instead of saying the prosecution must file under seal the name of the victim, and the unless you're the attorney on the case, you can't get into it. Now what the court has said they're going to do, the way I read it and the way everybody else reads it as well, is since we have to suppress minor children, who I'm sure are a very small percentage of all cases filed where they're victims, the court says we're going to deny access to everybody in Colorado unless you can show that you're the attorney of record on the case, and then therefore you can't see it. So you can't just go in and do it. And I had a conversation with an investigator today saying, are you kidding me? This is how I make my living, being able to go and access these court files. And for us to have to submit a special request and basically like some sort of FOIA request, because once again, poorly drafted legislation by the legislature has created this. They're saying suppress all this stuff of minor children, but at the same time, you can't do that, but we're not going to tell you how to do it. So now the courts say nobody has access to the file, and you have to go do it. Let me see if I can find that. It drives me nuts that I can't find it. It's just mind-blowing to me that they can't. They're not going to allow anybody to do that. Anyway, so that's where that is. All right. I mean, I just have a real problem with that. The government works for the people. It is a public record. When you start going to a closed society, things are done in the back rooms, darkness, bad situation. We need to know what the heck is going on. And if somebody did something bad, we should be able to have access to it. I don't get it. So now there's this tension between the public's right to know and somebody's privacy interest. Okay. The prosecution now can file something under a suppressed status under the court system we have here, saying it must be suppressed. So only the attorneys can get access to it. Okay, fine. That's fine. I get it. Whatever. All anybody has to do is show up to public court and see who the victim is. Like, what do these legislators, I swear, they really are a group of individuals that feel like they must do something to do something, and they do it poorly whenever they do something. I really just do not understand them at all. And I'm telling you that if they kept it clean and simple, they being legislators, we would not have half of the need for attorneys that we do. But because they so inartfully draft these statutes, that they just create so much ridiculousness that it's either overbroad, overboard, breath, which means, you don't know what the hell it means. And if you don't know what it means, then it's not enforceable. And, or half the time these legislators don't do anything. They just take some lobbyist walks down, hey, we'd like to have you take this bill and carry it forward. We think it's really going to protect everybody in the state. Sure, let's go. And they ram it through and everybody signs it and they feel good. And nobody reads anything. Like, seriously, these people do not read it. I think before these legislators can take a vote on something, they should actually attest to the fact that they've read it. Okay. And don't even get me started on the feds as well. I mean, complete nonsense there, but we're not talking about that. All right. It just the whole court thing, not public. And we see this more and more. We see it in Delphi. We want to suppress stuff. We saw it in Lori Vallow. We see it in Chad Daybell. Half of the Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow pre-trial hearings were done in chambers. Unbelievable. 28, going on 29 years of practice of law, and never have I done a motions hearing in chambers. I cannot think of a judge that would think that would be appropriate. The most you've done is maybe jury instructions in chambers, but you have a court reporter, the defendant, the prosecutor, right? Maybe jury selection every now and then. You go into chambers or you go into some sort of other conference room, maybe the jury deliberation room. But once again, it's you, the judge, the court reporter, the prosecutor, the defendant, and the defense attorney. It's done there is a record of it. And usually there's something only of such, not to embarrass, jurors where, they ask it, let's say, for example, I remember I had a case, it was a horrible, horrible sex assault case, horrible. And I'd never gone through so many jurors in my life. And I remember there was a little old lady. I think I've told this story before. She's like 70 years old. And I'm thinking, okay, she had put on there on the questionnaire that she had been a victim of a sexual assault. But I think the prosecutor, instead of just dismissing her, they said, well, let's talk with her. And this woman who's like 70 years old, and this happened when she was a child. Okay. She said she was a child, that her uncle did something inappropriate to her. And she goes, I'm still willing to serve, but I just really, I haven't really thought about this in probably the last 50 years. I've just kind of blocked it out. And coming here to court today, this just reopened a bunch of emotions. And I've seen similar type things before as well, where people just like, oh my God, this happened to me or a family member and I can't be fair and impartial. Get me out of here. And I understand some people it's not the right jury for them. They may be an excellent juror, totally qualified to be a juror, but maybe this just isn't the right case for them. So this 70-year-old lady, and that's appropriate. We're not trying to embarrass her, right? We're not trying to open up old wounds. That should be done in privacy. She didn't want to share that. But our fundamental principles of our system of justice is that it will be done in public. And we are getting so far and far away from that. And I'm telling you, it's very troubling to me. It really needs to be done in the open, in the public, for the people to see. I hope, and like I said, not that I think that Lori Vallow or Chad Daybell are innocent. We'll give old Chad the presumption of innocence. Who knows? His attorney may be able to work some magic, right? But I hope somebody was objecting to this not being in the public record, right? You have a right to an open trial, a public trial, Sixth Amendment right to a public trial. And I've seen cases reversed where they kicked people out. Oh, we're going to have a child come and testify. And somebody says, well, we're not going to do it. And this was, a long time ago. They get it now. But, you can't even kick family members out of a courtroom if they want to be there to watch the, voir dire, the jury selection process. You shouldn't do that. Well, I guess you need to get a bigger courtroom, judge, because, my client's family would like to see it. And we're not agreeing for everybody to step out into the hallway. We're not agreeing to this closed proceeding. No. And like I said, court cases have been reversed for that, where they kicked everybody out when the child was going to testify. It doesn't work that way. It's a public courtroom. You have a right to confront your accuser in an open courtroom, which means open to the public. Because, as we all know, it's easy to be a keyboard warrior and say, oh, you're the biggest bag of trash ever. Oh, if I see this, wait till I get to you, yada, yada, right? It's a lot different when you actually have to say it to somebody's face. That's why I love doing negotiations in person versus over the internet, or the email these days. And it's just a generational thing. I really do believe it, because I remember I would get more done walking through the halls of the courthouse than I would ever in my office. What I mean by that is you would walk down the hallway. Hey, I got that new discovery. We need to talk. Hey, you got a minute? Let's talk about this case. I think we're close. We can work something out. We can get it done. And obviously build that rapport, that respect for one another. And you can tell if somebody's BSing you. In today's world, nobody wants to go to court. Nobody has any time. They're always too busy. And, everything's on the computer these days. So the little DAs in the courtroom are always typing away, taking notes on what took place, because they used to have an good old fashioned paper file, and you just wrote it on the file up front, defendant present, enter plea not guilty. But now they feel like they must take down every word. So they're always too busy. Just send me an email. And, they say no all the time. Hey, what did you consider this? No. But if I can get you face to face, we're going to get you to yes. Okay. Because it's easier to say no to somebody when you don't have to look at them in the face. That's just the way it is. That's why things need to be done in public. Okay. Like I've said, every courtroom, if it were up to me, every courtroom in this country would have their own YouTube page, and they would be required to turn it on when they were in court. Let's see what's going on. So when the judge shows up there at 8:30 and the defense attorneys are sitting there and they say, Mr. Reich, would you like to have your case called? Your Honor, I would love to have my case called. Unfortunately, though, there is not a district attorney here. And unfortunately, my client is in custody today, and we don't have a sheriff. And then that sheriff takes an hour and a half to get to court. Now, I understand they're busy. They're understaffed. I get it. But that's not my problem. That's the sheriff problem. If I showed up an hour and a half late for court, I'd be held in contempt. Right? Maybe the judge would be saying, we're going to kick you off the case because you're incompetent. You can't get to court on time. We're not going to do that. So, like I said, I would put a camera in every courtroom so everybody can see what's going on. I don't care if it's municipal court, county court, district court, appellate court arguments, Supreme Court. We were at the Supreme Court a couple weeks ago. We submitted an amicus brief on behalf of a client on an issue, and guess what? Supreme Court, they videotaped it, made it available to the argument. Why not? If it's good enough for the Supreme Court, why shouldn't the district courts be allowed to do it? Right? And here's the thing. If you don't want to watch it, you don't want to see bad, terrible things and see ugly pictures of horrendous crime scenes, of deceased bodies, to show the horrific things that humans can do to other humans, well, don't watch it. But if you want to see what the heck is really going on in the world, ladies and gentlemen, go down to your local courthouse one day when they're doing a docket and look at the docket and see what the charge sheet will say. It usually has the name of the defendant. It has everything, all the charges. Oh, they're charged with aggravated robbery, kidnapping, murder, sexual assault. You're going to be like, I didn't hear about that on the news. No, you didn't. Okay. You know how they do what? One or two little, the evening news. That's why I can't even watch the local news anymore. It's so pathetic. They don't care what's going on in the world, but the local news is, oh, hi, here's our flavor of the month. Usually it's a teacher sleeping with a student, which is bad, obviously. Then they maybe talk about some NFL news or the news going on of the day. They have a feel-good story. Then we go to weather. Then we do some more sports. And, then we close off with, the three-legged dog story of the three-legged dog that was rescued and It's just it's all good in the world, and shouldn't we feel fuzzy, warm and fuzzy? No, I want to know what's really going on in the world. Like, I want to know, why are there still homeless people down across from the federal courthouse when they were supposed to be moving all these people? Why is that going on? Where are they all going? Why are they buying hotels at prices from people that used to work for the mayor just a couple of weeks before? Then they suddenly got in the real estate business to buy real estate, and then they go sell it at a much higher price to the government where they can put homeless people. I don't know. I think I'd like to know answer to those stories. But the problem is, like most media, is that they all want to be liked. Okay? Sure, who doesn't want to be liked? But it doesn't bother me if somebody doesn't like me. Okay? I am 54 years old. This is me. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. Okay? I don't care if you're not going to invite me to your fancy cocktail parties. I've never been in the cool kid club before, so I don't need to worry about getting into the cool kid club now. Okay? And so it's, we have no reason not to tell everyone what we believe are facts and the truth. Why? I have no reason to lie to anybody. Why? What do I have to gain out? What am I going to get? The truth comes out. It always does. Right? Just like in a court proceeding, from the time the case begins to the end, whether it's a jury trial or a guilty plea, the truth or a pretty darn close version of it will come out. But everyone in today's world apparently thinks that everybody is so stupid that they can just lie to everybody. And I just don't get it, right? Now, as a criminal defense attorney, you say, well, don't you people lie? No. Client has a constitutional right to make the government prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So when a defense attorney gets up and says, ladies and gentlemen, my client is not guilty, he or she is, because the prosecution hasn't proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt yet. Okay? Simple. Defense attorney. I mean, like I said, I always get asked this question. As a defense attorney, how can you do that? How can you represent, guilty people? And it's a classic answer. It's not the guilty ones that are hard. It's the innocent ones that keep you up at night. Okay? But the government has the burden, always does, to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. I have had cases where it was on video. My client confessed. And they're like, I want to go to trial. And you say, well, certainly you're right to do so. And we'll do it if that's what you decided to do. But I'm telling you, as your attorney, I think you will be convicted. Okay? I have to have that conversation quite frequently as a criminal defense attorney. I have a duty to tell my client, here's the good facts, the bad facts. And even if at the end of the day you go to trial, probably no better than a 50-50 chance at trial. Maybe not even that high, because the prosecution is supposed to win. The prosecution is supposed to win. They have all the evidence, right? They have all the resources, both of the government, law enforcement. They should win, but they don't. Oftentimes they don't. And so there you have it. But as a defense attorney, you're always looking at, okay, this is good. And then all of a sudden you get in a new piece of discovery and you're like, oh my, this is not good. Why did the client not tell me that? Ooh, I probably would have, I wouldn't have had such enthusiasm had he been honest with me, which is why I think it's always important for any client to be honest with your attorney, because your attorney is going to try to tell you, do we zig? Do we zag? Right? If I go into court and I get my trousers pulled down around my ankles because, I didn't see something coming, I'm going to look silly. But guess what? The client is going to prison. So always be honest with your attorney. Let them know the bad facts. Let them know, hey, now we're no longer in not guilty mode. We're in mitigation mode. We need to minimize the losses here. How do we do that? Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Sally Villa, the trial for Gannon threw me for a loop. Closest enemy to PTSD. Peace out, Lisa said that. Yeah. I know. Peace out, Lisa. She was our mod for the Gannon Stout trial, if I remember correctly, and I think she was there from beginning to end. And I'm telling you, if people saw what depravity people can have to other people, and not that I'm condoning it, I'm not, but people need to know that evil exists out there. And I've said that for years. It's like, oh, you're a defense attorney. You don't think anybody needs to go to prison. No, I have come face to face with evil, ladies and gentlemen. I have been in a small holding cell with evil many, many times. Now, don't get me wrong. I always try to find something, a good redeeming quality of a client, no matter how heinous the crime they may have committed. And as I've always said, we're defending people's rights, not their actions necessarily. So, like I said, I've sat there with evil many times in that room. And like I said, if the world knew all the stuff that goes on, like I said, go try to find a police blotter in your community. You will be shocked. You will be shocked as to what takes place. I've been following a thing on Instagram. It's a guy that is upset with the homeless stuff that's when they're moving people. In fact, one of them it's just a heartbeat away from my house, and I can't believe it. And I think I told you this. I went to this community meeting about they're going to put all these homeless people, like unhoused, homeless, whatever you want to call them, down on their luck. And some of these people, it was very interesting meeting. Because there were a couple of people that were like, well, I'm homeless and I can get more benefits and I can do this. And I'm like, well, okay, like maybe couldn't you be trying to find a job as well? But okay, because I mean, I've seen people that want to work and they can find jobs, right? Somebody today, ran to somebody today looking for a job, got a job by the end of the day, wanted to work. Not saying, where's my benefits? Like, where do I work? When can I start? So that was very interesting. Anyway, so I'm leaving. And I see a former detective that I know. Now she's a lieutenant. We'll just leave it at that. Don't want to get anybody in trouble. And I said, hey, detective / lieutenant, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Congratulations on your promotion. That's great. I said to the detective, to the lieutenant, I said, these people have the think this is a good idea. To bring this to their neighborhood. They have no idea what's coming their way. And the lieutenant responded, I was told to stand here and not to say a word. I said, okay, well, let me ask it this way. You're not disagreeing with me when I say these people that think this is a good idea and that they're being neighborly and all that good stuff, they have no idea what's coming their way, do they? And she just kind of smiled and shook her head like, no, I can't say anything. But no, they have no idea. No. And don't get me wrong, I've represented many, many an indigent client over the years. My office still does. And I get it. People they can be down on their luck. It can be hard times for them. I get that. Because, things happen. I get it. But a lot of times people are there, I wouldn't say of choice, but because of poor choices. So, it's I don't know. You get more of what you tolerate. If you tolerate people putting up, I mean, I just can't believe it how Denver has changed. You wouldn't see that. You saw a couple of homeless people, but it was very few. And now it's everywhere. And now they're buying $1 million properties, like not just like, 1 or 2 million. We're talking like they're spending $20, $30 million on property to put people there. No conditions of whether they have to be drug-free, alcohol-free while they're there. That's it. Don't agree. I mean, I don't get it. I do not get it. I get you can help somebody out for a little bit, but you're not going to enable what I want. Just, That was our secret thing that see here. We got a lot of time. Like I said. Okay. Is there an issue with the sound? Is it back? Maybe it was me because I bumped the microphone or something. I don't know. But hopefully I can't hear you. You're cutting out. Oh, maybe I moved the mic just enough. Let's. Oh, no. Can you hear me now? Okay, now. All right. I probably bumped the microphone, jiggling the little wire there, which caused it to go out for just a second. But I think we're good now. All right, good. Okay, so what else can we talk about? We talked a little bit about the Delphi case. If you got questions about Delphi, now's the time to put them up. We also had, like I said, the whole issue regarding Chad Daybell. The court is not going to move the trial back to Madison or Fremont County. And I think that's the wise decision to make. The judge made the decision early on that there was too much publicity, too many persons familiar with the case down there in Fremont and Madison County. And the judge stated in his own order that the people would be offended by that. And it was quite the buzz when the bodies of JJ and Ty Lee were found on the property of Chad Daybell. And so here we are. Prosecution, is it because it's the money thing? They've said that all along. They were honest with it long ago. Now, of course, they're just, they can get it. We think all the media hype it's been at its pinnacle. It's going to come down, and we'll go from there. And the judge, tried to do a little pandering to the hometown people, saying, of course, everybody in Fremont and Madison counties could be fair and impartial. They're great, salt of the earth people that would do great. And I'm sure they would. There's no doubt in my mind. But disqualification of a juror doesn't mean that they know something about the case, just that they've formed an opinion about the case. I think the court, when he says, hey, the prosecution, you haven't produced any statistical data about anything that's taken place thus far. Therefore, I don't have anything new to go upon. And what he means is that the prosecution had to do some work, and they didn't. Okay. And when he means statistical data, because let me tell you how motions for change of venue normally work. First of all, the client gets charged, arrested, and first thing he says, man, I want to change a venue. This place is tough down here. Yeah, they are. And the crime is usually prosecuted in the area in which the crime was committed, the jurisdiction it was committed. That's the venue. Jurisdiction is the state. Venue is the city, county in which the crime was allegedly committed. Sometimes there could be multiple appropriate venues. Like you steal a car, you could be charged where the car was recovered or where the car went stolen. Homicide, where the body was found or where the crime allegedly took place. Can't be prosecuted in the same place, but they can, I guess technically on motor vehicles they can, but not so much. They usually pick one and go with it. It's just a fair thing to do. Anyway, so if you think that you're going to have a publicity problem or you're going to have too much publicity in the area, and I'm saying we ran into this when we had a case down in Telluride several years ago, 2 dead children, and everybody knew about it. I mean, there's one little radio station in the ski town of Telluride. All the locals knew about it. Everybody knew about it. It was on national news. It was on international news. And I was at the point where we're like, do we hire basically a statistician to basically conduct a survey. Hey, have you formed an opinion about this case? And, do all statistical analysis to submit it to the court for a change of venue. Fortunately, we had a very, very smart judge. And this particular jurisdiction was had multiple counties in that judicial district. So normally big counties, let's say Denver, the judges are in the second judicial district. But if you're in the southwestern part of the state, there's not as much crime. So each county may have one or two judges to cover a much greater area. And the judge can change the venue from one county to another as long as it's in the same judicial district without having to notify the Supreme Court of, hey, we're going to move this trial, reassign it. Okay. And so I'm thinking, my gosh, do we do this? I don't know. Do we spend the money? Oh, it's terrible. What are we going to do? And so I started conducting my own informal survey, completely anecdotal, not worth anything that it was written upon. And I remember we were sitting at dinner and we just, got the check, and, the lady knew we were from out of town, and I think we were in suits or something. And she's like, so what are you gentlemen doing here this evening? And we're like, oh, we're in town for a little case. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. She goes, is it that Norwood case? Why, yes, it is. Why don't you tell me? What do you know about the case? Oh, yeah, I can't believe that happened. It was terrible. Those kids are dead. Oh my gosh, it's just terrible. Okay, it's terrible. Anytime young children die is terrible, but what do you know about the case, and have you formed an opinion? Oh yeah, they're guilty. Oh, okay. I remember we flew in, go to the FBO. Hey, just asking, I'm going to be coming back here again. You heard about that case up in Norwood? Oh yeah, we did. Oh, dead kids, guilty. All right, good. And so we had kind of an informal status conference, and we're like, judge was like, hey, any motions you're going to judge, maybe file a motion to continue or to do a change of venue. I said, based upon my unofficial, unscientific poll of talking to people in the small community, that we need to do a change of venue. Judge says, well, I may save you the trouble. I too live in this small town, and I don't think that the defendants would get a fair trial here, so I'm going to move the trial. And also one of the reasons was that they went to a bigger county in Montrose where they have a much greater jury pool. And guess what? We went to this big county, although not populated like, an urban center. It was a much bigger county, had a much bigger jury pool. I think we brought on 600 jurors. We didn't need 300. I think we went through 300 of them before, and we got a jury, no sweat. Because people are like, no, haven't been following the case. Nope, haven't been listening to the news. So many people don't listen to the news. I guess it's bad news. They get tired of seeing bad news. But bad news is the news. So that's how it works. And so the judge made the right decision. Judge Boyce made the right decision in the Chad Daybell case to keep the case in Ada County. And not that the people in Fremont or Madison County could not be fair and impartial. I'm sure they would make great jurors. And they would follow their oath to the letter of the law. No doubt in my mind. But there'll always be that taint of, well, should we have moved it or not? Just go get 12 people. Go get 12 people that haven't heard anything about it and let them decide the case. Okay. Let them decide it. And that's just the way to do it. It's called due process. It's called keeping it fair. And I understand it's expensive for the prosecutors to go up there from Madison and Fremont up to Ada County. It's on the other side of the state. I can only imagine the drive is probably 6-8 hours, something along those lines. And to have to go deal with that. I mean, I've done lengthy trials on the road. It's not pleasant. You don't get to sleep in your own bed. The good thing is you only focus on doing the trial. It's your complete focus. And you just have to adjust to it. That's just the nature of the beast. And I get it's expensive, but hey, as I was told a long time ago as a young prosecutor, like, sir, I asked the question of my, of the colonel. I said, why are we spending all this money on this case? He's like, young lieutenant or captain, I can't remember what he goes, justice is expensive. The government will always find money to prosecute who they think the justice requires to be done. They will. They'll move it around. They'll raise taxes. They'll add a fee to something. So there you go. Oh, Kitty Kitty Bang Bang said, all the cool kids are hanging out with you tonight. I know. Isn't that the funny thing? I mean, go to the internet. I mean, and I don't know, kitty bang bang, if you were one of the cool. I was never one of the cool kid growing up. I just never was. You know, I was always the kid. I was the brother of the screw up older brother. You know, that kind of tainted my, I don't know, educational experience. Oh, that's your brother? Really? You guys are so opposite of one another. Yeah, I know. And you know, I don't fit the typical, what's the word I'm looking for? The typical stereotypical kind of like public defender. You know, I was a public defender, the equivalent of public defender in the Marines. I didn't want to do it on the outside. But, you know, I remember started taking court-appointed cases. You're a public defender. You're taking cases the public defender has a conflict with. And you see some of the worst things you could possibly do. And, you know, there's always that little rivalry between the private counsel and the public defenders. Like, oh, yeah, I went to trial and I won. Did you? No. Well, I had the more guilty party. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we'll just have to wait. You know, I mean, it's like I said, I've never felt like the cool kid. I mean, every now and then I get invited to cool stuff, but it doesn't break my heart if I don't get invited to it because, like I said, at my age these days, I'm comfortable enough with myself. You know, I don't need to. I mean, I obviously want people to like the product that we're putting out. You know, receiving value from your time that you're actually you know, coming here. And that's what we want to do. And if we ask you to buy something, it's because, you know, we believe in it and we're not trying to do it just to, you know, one and done. We've been here for, I think, 5 years now. We've been doing this thing. And so 5 years and trying to do a show almost every day, doing lives for probably at least the last 4 years on Tuesday nights. You know where to find us. We're not going anywhere. You know, bottom line is, you know, it's I have no reason to lie to anybody. Like, these are the facts. This is the way I see it. This is the way things go. I know there's a lot of YouTubers out there. I mean, they just, the hype and the what if, and I'm just not built that way. I'm more of, let's be intellectually honest. Let's look at the facts. Let's see where it's coming out. And you know as well as I do, things are probably going to turn out the way that we all think they're going to take place. But you got to go through the process, and that's fine. And every now and then there'll be that outlier where you'll be like, oh my gosh, you know, like an O.J. Simpson type case. Oh my gosh, he'll be found, you know, not guilty. Really? Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're just kind of shaking your head. Okay. But that's the way the jury's decided. That's the way the jury's decided. They have decided the prosecution did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay. And jumping back to the Delphi thing, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I was Richard Allen's attorney, I would adopt his previous attorney's motions. And I'd say, Judge, let's go to trial. I think he's got reasonable doubt, and that doesn't even include the gun stuff in all this. This was all just the Odinite stuff. I mean, and they pull out transcripts of interviews with law enforcement people. And you're like, wow, that's just crazy. I mean, let's just take a look at this here. I mean, they just tear apart the government's case. And I can't wait for this to be televised, okay? One way or the other, whether it's with Richard Allen's previous attorneys, Rossi and Baldwin, or the new guys whose name I haven't memorized just yet, they should go to trial. But I think I just randomly pulled the page here, page 110. In other words, for Liggett's timeline to work, Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have to remain parked at the old CPS building from roughly 1:30 p.m. when Liggett claims Richard Allen arrived until roughly 4 p.m. after, as Liggett claims. Richard Allen had abducted and murdered the girls. If Richard's black Ford Focus was not on that CPS parking lot between those hours of 1:30 to 4, then Liggett's timeline would be blown. In his deposition, Liggett was asked a series of questions by defense counsel, and Liggett answered those questions as follows. Question: Is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:29, roughly p.m. on February 13th, 2017? Yes. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:45? Yes. Is it your contention that his black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 2 p.m. on February 13th? Yes, yes, yes. And they go through all the times. Okay. What time do you contend that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was no longer parked at the parking lot? 4 p.m. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the parking lot at 4:30 p.m.? Yes. Is your contention that he was parked at the old parking lot at 4 p.m.? Yes. 3:45? Yes. Through his answers, Liggins demonstrated that he recognized that for his timeline to work, Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have to be parked at the CPS lot from 1:30 to 4 p.m. in order to give Richard the time to abduct and murder the girls and return to his vehicle. Therefore, if there was any evidence that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was not parked in the old CPS lot between those times, that is something that Liggett would be required to share with Judge Diener. Rather than tell the truth, Liggett concealed the evidence that Richard's black Ford Focus had left the CPS parking lot probably at 1:30 p.m., but certainly before 2:15 p.m. when Blair saw a completely different car, and therefore Richard Allen could not have been on the bridge at 2 p.m. or committed the murder soon thereafter. And they go through this pretty methodically throughout the entire motion. I don't know, Frank, maybe we should just spend a day reading it. I'm telling you, it's good reading. Now, the Judge Gull, thought it was the biggest piece of garbage ever written. I don't think so. I'd be like, man, this is all good stuff that comes from the evidence or the lack thereof, and certainly everything the defense can argue that he wasn't there. He didn't do it. He's being framed. I don't know if he is or not. But if these facts come out like they come out in the motion that the defense, Baldwin and Rozzi, had filed, I don't know. I'd say there's reasonable doubt there. Their final conclusion on page 134 of it. Richard Allen is not connected to these horrific murders in any way. Liggett attempted to convince Judge Diener that evidence of the murders would be found in Rick's home over 5 years after the girls were slain, based upon the 7 enumerated reasons identified above. If Liggett had been honest, then Judge Diener would not have signed the warrant. Liggett wasn't honest, though. Richard's lack of any connection whatsoever to the crime scene, combined with Liggett's lies and concealment, merit a Frank's hearing. And like I said, for those who don't recall, a Frank's hearing is when there's an arrest warrant or an affidavit for a search warrant, and there are material misrepresentations or omissions. And so what you do is you say, all right, here's the affidavit. We can show that this is not true. So you kind of like redact it, cut it out of there. And you cut out all the lies. Or if you say there was a material omission, if I put that omission in there where I cut out where there was something that was withheld, would there still be probable cause for the case to go forward? I don't know. I mean, I think clearly it would in this particular case, but when the defense can show, what's the word I'm looking for? If the defense can show that there are lies, material misrepresentations, and it doesn't have to be, I mean, let's face it. God, why am I having the brain freeze? Who was the guy? The case was thrown out. Mother's Day murder. Barry Morphew. Sorry. Brain freeze there. That affidavit was like 128 pages long. And it was just nonsense. And the court recognized it, at least the one that was going to deal with the motions issues, because most of the stuff is speculation. It's not really admissible. How are we getting here? Right? But the judge still signed it. And then later on, another judge was like, no, this nonsense isn't going to work. And that's the way the system works. But the problem is you can't let the people in the system get a pass when they do bad things. Most people in the system are good people trying to do their best with the circumstances they have. I get that. And when they lie and they really mess it up, they need to be held accountable. But a lot of times they never are. A lot of times are the DAs back up bad cops, then judges back up bad cops by not suppressing things when they know it's just not true. And it's clear that it's not true. And then the client has to go to trial, lose, go get an appeal, come back and win. And nobody wants to address the fact that somebody got it wrong, that your client had to spend years in prison in the unappellate process because somebody messed it up. And they're immune. You can't go after them, right? I have a client, we did a trial 7 years ago. It's a 2017. It's going to be coming up on 6 years. We did a trial back in 2018. It got reversed. And, we'll go do the trial again sometime this summer. But the client's been in custody for 7 years, waiting for that whole process to take place. And he gets a new trial because the judge screwed up the instructions that we told him. Judge, you need to add this instruction. And of course, like most judges do, oh, you're just the defense counsel. You're just, how dare you? No, Judge, I'm trying to protect the record as well, just like you. Why are you listening to that guy or lady and everything they say when you should be, probably listen to the guy that has a little more experience in the room. Don't always go with the prosecution. And judges do that. I get it. They're young. Oh, prosecution does this. They want this. I get it. Okay, Judge, until you get burned and you start getting reversed enough, then you'll start listening to the experienced defense attorney. Just saying. Probably done more trials than you have, Judge. Just saying. You may want to listen to me every now and then. Don't get me wrong. I'm not right all the time. But I think we have a correct of, 98.9%. Frank could probably check that out, but I think we're probably up there. 98% of the time, 98.9% of the time, we usually call it right. I think we do. Have to have our statisticians check that out. All right, Frank, are there any questions that we can ask here that have been highlighted that are easy? Lula says Barry's guilty. Well, Lula, not in the eyes of the law. I understand people don't like that decision, but the prosecution, listen, I don't know what happened in that case. I know the prosecution screwed it up. Oh, yeah. Prosecutor's probably going to lose their license. Some of those people in law enforcement that were involved in that, they may have some real problems there. So I don't know who is responsible for the death of Suzanne Morphew. I know some people, the state thought that Barry Morphew did. We always gave him the presumption of innocence. But if anybody's got any beef with the Barry Morphew case, man, that should lie directly at the feet of the prosecuting attorneys. They acted like a bunch of amateurs, and it showed. They were not up to the job. Bottom line. So Lula, I get it. I mean, they don't like it, but don't blame the defense attorney. Don't blame the defendant who was, had the charges thrown out against him and had to spend his life savings to do that. Blame the prosecutors who screwed it up. Would you, this is a great question. Would you ever want to be a judge? Good question. No, actually, I used to get this question all the time. My mother-in-law would always ask me, so would you like to be a judge someday? And my first response would be, yeah, no. Couldn't take the pay cut. And most people don't realize, okay, you have various levels of judges, okay? We'll talk about this and then we'll call it a night. The lowest level judge is, you have magistrates and you have judges. Judges are usually appointed by the governor or elected, depending on the jurisdiction you live in. Magistrates are usually hired by the chief judge to assist. So let's just use a simple example. You got municipalities. They usually have a judge. They handle traffic tickets, maybe minor domestic violence cases. Do trials, six people, maybe have court a couple of days a week, usually a part-time job, depending on the circumstances. Some bigger jurisdictions have municipal court judges, okay? The question then becomes, would I want to sit around and be a judge and hear traffic cases, neighbor disputes, protection orders? No. I would rather stick a hot K-bar knife in my eye than doing that. Okay. Then you have county court judges. County court judges usually handle misdemeanors, DUIs, DVs, occasional, butt grab case, something along those lines. But that's about it. Okay. Most of those cases result in guilty pleas. I just cannot see myself sitting in a courtroom for 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, taking guilty pleas, right? You know how they say the body wears out after a certain point, like you only have so many miles in your legs before your joints go. I think as an attorney or a judge, you only have so many guilty pleas that you could take before your head explodes. Okay. Couldn't do it. I have no desire to do that. Then you get the next level. You got district court judges. All right. Obviously civil, they handle divorces, civil cases, civil money matters. And then you got the criminal docket as well at the district court level. But most judges, they have neither the time, the staff, the resources to really spend a whole lot of time doing anything. It is a triage system. Okay, we got to have this case done before speedy trial. All right, let's get in. We're gonna have to continue this. What is this? I got to get a continuance of this. We got to get a senior judge in. We have an extra courtroom, so we can do that. Judge, that's not going to work because it's both attorneys on the case. They don't have any staff. Okay, then you go to the federal bench. Okay, federal judge, job for life, big courtroom, not a crazy docket. The only case I ever saw a crazy docket was I had a case down in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and they just lined everybody up. Most of them were like illegal reentries. We had a prison stabbing case there, but they lined them all up. And I've done federal cases all over. Federal judge, if you're going to be a judge, you'd be a federal judge or nothing at all. And you get the resources. You get a staff. You get law clerks that are actual attorneys that are really smart, and they're going to help you research the law to get it right. Then you got the appellate courts, these guys, beautiful chambers. Once again, law clerks galore. It's a good gig, good gig. Life appointment, and then obviously Supreme Court, right? And then you got appellate courts as well. Same deal. You sit on, the appellate courts, usually a 3-judge panel if you're not sitting all together, what they call en banc. And, they hear cases on their own schedule. There's no timeline. Oh, you got to get this case out. Oh, from the time this case has started, how long till we get the order out? No real pressure like that. Continuances are granted. Once again, the resources is very nice. We were at Supreme Court the other day. Very nice. But they have the rules. Oh, you must use this spacing and you got to do this. That would drive me nuts. Okay. One of the worst parts about being in law school, you might ask, blue booking. Okay. You say, what is blue booking? There is a book. I may still have a copy of it, maybe in the other room. Maybe if I find it during the break, I'll look for the Patreon show. It was how you cite cases, newspaper article, law journals, etc. And if you were really smart and you really had a knack for editing, you could become a law journal editor. So it means professors would submit papers to the law journal, and then you would double check them. You'd be like a fact checker. And they'd say, oh, you used a semicolon. You should have just used a comma. And they made everybody try to write on for that, and I wouldn't do it. Couldn't do that. And that's the bad thing about appellate stuff. But no, would I want to be a judge? No. And to be honest with you, most judges that were criminal defense attorneys make terrible judges on the bench. And I mean terrible in the sense of, from the defense perspective, they're terrible because they've heard it all. They've had enough. They want to go do something else. Okay. And they make terrible judges. And they're like, I've heard that before. Denied, guilty. So would I want to be a judge? No. All right. Am I seeing that correctly? Was that a $20 thing? All right. Let's do that one, Frank. Got to get. Got to get the super chat here. What does it say? Super sticker. All right. Well, thank you. Keeping it real. Appreciate that. Any others there? No questions. Okay. Well, appreciate that as well. All right. Well, we appreciate those with the $1 no question, but we like to give you value. So if you're going to submit a question, you're going to chip in, ask a question. We'll answer it. Mama Pink. I met a retired Supreme Court judge back in October. I was so saddened and disappointed when he kissed me and made an inappropriate comment when I just stuck out my hand to shake it. It broke my heart. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember, these people, they have a position. They are there. Yes, you give respect to the office, the position that they hold. But all of these people, they are human too. There's nothing about them that says that they are not flawed like the rest of us. Okay, we're all flawed human beings. Let's not even argue about it. Okay, we're all hypocrites. It's just a matter of degree. I don't care whether you're a Supreme Court justice, a little attorney, or the homeless guy on the street. We are all flawed human individuals. We are. And I don't know. I don't get too excited by titles. I know people. I have judges that used to work for me. I have judges that I wrote letters to get them on the bench. I'm not saying it was my single factor that got them there, but I'd like to think that I must have trained them well, that they are in fact there. I think I have 3 former associates that are judges now. Good for them. Just not what I want to do. But just remember, they're just everyday people. Okay. And they're all flawed, just like the rest of us. So don't be overwhelmed or overexcited by people in position of authority. Okay. I still believe it. I've said this before. And it's part of my 12 undeniable truths from a criminal defense attorney. Number 1, there are 2 types of people in the world, those that are humble and those that are about to be. And yes, every now and then we joke like, oh, we get a 98% right. It's, 98.9% right. But the reality of it is we try to be humble. Listen, I can go from the greatest attorney in the world to literally the biggest bag of trash the next day. Okay. I've told this story. I walked a guy on a homicide case. It was the second time I walked the same guy on a homicide case. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I go across the street, new client, do a little bond argument, denied. Client looks at me, his family's paid me. He goes, what kind of attorney are you? May have used another little expletive. What kind of attorney are you? You can't even win a bond reduction argument. I'm like, guess not. But yesterday I was quite the deal. Right? So it's, you just got to be humble, ladies and gentlemen. And, if things go well, like we just hit 250, guess what? It could all end tomorrow. You just never know. You have to appreciate it for what it is. All right. I want to thank you all for watching. We're going to go do our Patreon show. If you haven't become a Patreon member, now would be the time to do it. It's like $1, right, Frank? Or $5 a month? But you get value. You can call in, ask questions, talk about whatever you want. Heck, I think we give you stuff. You can even ask us questions like anytime, right? I mean, we send you cool stuff with it. We give you value. We don't want to just take your money. We want to give you something in exchange for that. So anyway, there we go. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you all. We'll see our Patreon for our Patreon exclusive show next. Join the cool kids. Join the cool kids with Scott, the cool Scott. Next. Thanks for watching.